everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Scott Holstein, and I am the Director of Marketing and Business Development for Computrols. As you may know, Computrols is best known for our building automation solutions, particularly HVAC control, but we also control lighting, access, and fire alarm systems as well. But what many people don't know is that Computrols has a web application that can be utilized for tenant overtime systems, which is really what we're here to talk about today. Our tenant overtime system is not specific to Computrols building automation system, so you can actually hook that up into any third-party building automation system you may like. But Computrols has an extensive amount of experience in commercial real estate. It's by far the vertical market that we work with most. You can find this technology that we're talking about today in CBRE headquarters in Los Angeles and Hines headquarters in Houston. And we're also in 3 of the 4 tallest buildings in the state of Texas, as well as many of the more prominent buildings throughout the U.S. Going into our presentation today, we're going to talk about what a tenant overtime system is, what that looked like historically, what those processes were, and then what automated systems do today. We'll talk about the benefits of those systems to both tenants and property managers, and then we'll discuss how those tenant overtime systems are priced and how you calculate your ROI. Finally, we're going to give you a live look at our tenant overtime system to give you an idea of what this all looks like in application. So tenant overtime systems are also known as TOS, overtime HVAC and/or lighting, tenant billing systems, tenant after-hours billing, or any combination of those names. You'll primarily see these systems in commercial real estate as a means for tenants to schedule HVAC and lighting in their spaces after the agreed-upon hours in their lease. And that's really where tenant overtime got started, is in commercial real estate. When you specify within a lease that tenants are going to receive heating or cooling that's going to provide a certain temperature range over a specified period of time. So typically you're talking about like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, maybe 8 a.m. to noon on Saturday. And this also includes lighting as well. So what tenant overtime systems do is they give property managers a means of saving energy and money while still serving their tenants by letting them, get the services they need outside of those normal business hours. So overtime requests are typically served through a property's building automation system. The building automation system on a normal day has a schedule that it's going to serve HVAC and lights to a given tenant space for a given period of time. And for tenant overtime requests, it simply extends that time. At the end of the day, typically tenants are billed back for these services. So they're typically billed back by the amount of time that they've requested HVAC and lights or the actual energy consumption. So looking at historical systems, requests historically have come in by phone, even by email, going back not that far, or people coming to the property management company and saying, hey, I'm going to be here late. And then from there, process gets passed along to the building engineer. The building engineer then subsequently goes and manually schedules overtime within the building automation software for that building. And then finally, it's also manually brought over to the accounting team for billing purposes. So this is a little bit more antiquated system and way of doing things. You can see how this system would require additional notice to be able to get overtime services like HVAC and lights. You see up there, requests typically are required to come in 24 to 48 hours ahead of time. Now, in more automated and modern systems today, what you'll see is typically an online interface. So tenants will get an online interface. Typically, they will give a tenant a super user account where they can subsequently add and remove other users when necessary. And within these modern systems, tenants can easily see what hours they're booking, how much overtime requests are going to cost, and make notes as to why the request was made. You also see beyond online interfaces, you can actually dial into some systems, or you'll see that there's a button on a thermostat in a tenant space that allows them to extend their overtime as well. And then from an execution standpoint, the more modern interfaces for tenant overtime systems hook directly into building automation. system. So there's really no room. There's no room for human error because there's really no human involvement beyond the initial booking, and that goes for the billing as well. When the requests are made by the website, they are immediately pushed to the back-end accounting system in the tenant overtime system itself, and you're able to track and invoice directly from that system. So talking about some of the benefits here, to tenants, it's really a matter of convenience. You can schedule on the go, you can schedule on your phone, your tablet, your PC. You can cancel if necessary. Obviously, these newer systems give tenants the ability to schedule things as they come up. I mean, I know that, the majority of the time when I'm staying late at work, it's not because I planned to stay late. I certainly didn't know 48 hours in advance I was going to stay late, and at least most of the time. So this gives them that on-demand HVAC and lighting access that they really need. Now, from a property manager's perspective, you have a slew of benefits here. So number one for property managers is always tenant satisfaction. It's statistical fact that when you have an automated tenant overtime system, that tenant satisfaction is going to increase. So keeping your tenants happy is number one. And then number two beyond that is the revenue stream. So if you've never had a tenant overtime system or process before, this is a new revenue stream to you altogether. Now, if you had a more manual process and you upgraded to an automated process that allows tenants to book online, what we found is that actually increases that tenant overtime revenue as well. So you also have the luxury of no human error in these automated systems. So there's no leakage in revenue. Between getting the request, putting it into the building automation system, sending it to accounting to get invoiced, there's no doubt that some requests fall through the cracks in some capacity. And then really the big savings here, and I think that when you talk to people who have gone from either no system whatsoever or a really manual system to an automated system, the amount of time that's saved for the building engineer entering in those requests, for the property manager taking the request, facilitating the request, and then the accounting team having to generate invoices, I think the time savings is probably the number one benefit if you ask most property managers. And looking at pricing of these systems, they're generally priced one of two ways. First of all, you have software as a service. In a software as a service scenario, you're going to have a lower upfront cost. However, you are going to have a continuous ongoing fee. So software as a service model really is probably better for some of the smaller commercial buildings out there, only because the amount of revenue generated by the tenant overtime system in a smaller building isn't going to be quite as much. And when you think about how frequently commercial real estate changes hands, it's difficult to see that return on your investment through maybe the one-time fee model, which is going to be a little bit more on the upfront expense. However, once you get past that initial investment, you're 100% profit after that, which is really appealing, particularly for larger buildings who are able to generate more from that TOS. Now, when calculating return on investment for these systems, the very obvious number that we look at is how much are we making in overtime bookings? Is how much revenue is coming in, and I can very easily associate an ROI there. Some of the things that aren't tracked are things like revenue leakage, and truthfully, this is a difficult thing to pin down. You could potentially go back over the last year and line up, all of your building automation system overtime requests, all of your tenant requests, and then all of your invoices to make sure that everything actually made it into the system and got invoiced. So it's typically difficult to figure out what that revenue leakage might be. But really, like I said in the previous slide, the time saved is really where this pays off. You can very easily calculate, how much time does my property manager spend on average for a request? How much time does my building engineer spend putting in that request? And how much time does my accounting department spend invoicing that request? And then, come up with a number of, look, I have X number of requests. It typically costs me this much to process a request. And you'll be able to really reach that return on your investment more quickly. So what we're going to go into next here is Computrols' version of our tenant overtime platform. And this is built within our CBAS web platform. Now, CBAS Web is a web-based application that plugs directly into our building automation software. But like I mentioned before, this is an application that can plug into any third-party building automation software. In addition to what I'm going to show you here with the tenant overtime system, this system also offers remote access to your building automation system. We have an access control platform built in this as well. You can also put together historical data and reporting dashboards on CBAS Web. One of the nice parts about the way this system works is it is extremely easy for tenants to use. So I'll click over here, and you have your tenant interface. And our overtime system can measure HVAC, lighting, kWh, and BTU consumption. It can handle complex billing scenarios, taxes, and create invoices. It can be programmed and managed in-house, and we have 24/7 remote tech support. And we mentioned the two kind of ways that these systems are paid for. For us, it's a one-time cost. If you know anything about Computrols, you know that we're all about empowering our end users. We don't want to have an ongoing hold on our customers. We want them to be free to go and use our systems as they see fit, and to be able to do it with minimal assistance. So we try to make everything as simple as possible. So jumping into our demo here, you'll see again, very simple tenant interface. If I want to go look at past overtimes, I can quickly navigate and see who booked what and when. I could export these as an Excel file, print them, view as a PDF. There are a number of ways that I can get to this information. But if we go back, we'll look at, you could also look at current active overtimes. You could also look at upcoming overtimes. But we'll go here and we'll click here to schedule a new overtime. So for this particular building, you have, and this particular tenant, they have the whole floor. So they have the option to run HVAC and lights on half the floor if they want to. But we'll go here and we'll select all or both of these points so that both sides of the floor are getting HVAC and lights. When I click on schedule all selected points, we'll go over to book our overtime. Again, we try to make this as dummy-proof as possible. So if we show our custom schedule here, it'll show what is in my lease. So in my lease, I have 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, and then I also have Saturday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. So those are free or already paid for within my lease. Now, to book an overtime request, all I would need to do is go to the time here. I'm going to say from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Click schedule overtime. You also have a notes function here. This allows you to put a note that's going to come out on the invoice as to why this overtime was requested. I know occasionally there's some tenants who may actually bill this back to one of their clients, so they want to know why we stayed late, why we paid for this. But if we click schedule overtime, you'll see this overtime confirmation. It's going to tell you what units are going to be running. It's going to tell you the period of time and the exact price of that overtime request. Now, if you were to come in and, let's say, try to schedule an overtime from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., the system's going to recognize that from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., you're already paid for. It's in your lease. And in this screen, when it goes to your confirmation, it's going to tell you that. It's going to tell you from 4 to 6 p.m. is already included. You'll only be paying from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., and here's your price. Now I'll click over to the administrator or property management side of things, and you'll notice this is a much different color and theme than what we had previously. This is all customizable to the building, to the property management company, so we can put your branding on here. But as you'll see, another kind of really basic interface. And what I want to show is in database here, if we go to edit our groups, you'll see a list of tenants. We'll edit the Computrols test tenant by clicking edit. And then within this tenant, I could change the name. I could add information to the tenant. But I want to go over here to our billing information just to give you an idea of how customizable the billing is. Just like every lease is different, your billing is going to be set up slightly differently. And you can see here, you can include so many hours of free AC or lights. You can determine what you're going to be paying for BTU consumption, for kWh consumption. It's all customizable within this platform. Next, I'm going to go over to our reports and go to our accounting report. We're going to look at from March 1st to March 31st, we are going to choose the Computrols test tenant. And we want to look at all of the different potential overtime requests here. And as we scroll down, you'll also be able to select if you want to see this on your screen as a PDF or an unrecorded PDF. So when you go create a report, what you're going to get is a zip file that has something like this. You're going to have these folders that have Excel and PDF formats, so you're able to do both, depending on what you need to do to maneuver that invoice. Now, what you see over here is a sample of an invoice that we've created here, and this is, again, it's customizable by the tenant, by the property management company. So we really try to get it to where, you know, it has your branding and is consistent with what you want it to look like. But lots of information here on when things were requested, why they were requested, who they were requested by. So this is all something that happens in the background once you set up that information on the tenant billing side. So that's really a quick version of you know, what we do on tenant overtime, as well as a background on tenant overtime systems as a whole. It doesn't look like we've had any questions come through. I really appreciate everybody's time today. If there's anything else that we can help you with, you can email us at info@computrols.com. You also have our phone number down here, 504-529-1413. If you have any questions about what we do from a building automation perspective or, of course, tenant overtime, we'd be happy to help.
All right. With that said, thank you all again for attending, and have a great day.